This is Alex Taylor from Alex Taylor Racing, and you are listening to the Builder Sessions.
Welcome to the Builder Sessions, a podcast where we chat with your favorite builders.
We get to know them, their stories, and hopefully inspire you to get off the couch and build something cool. I'm Hoff.
And I'm Rosie.
And on this episode, we have Alex Taylor from Alex Taylor Racing.
We talk about what it's like to have racing in your blood, being authentic in all things, and the importance of taking your time to develop your skill sets and knowledge base.
Please enjoy our interview with Alex.
Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you on. I've been a fan, not for a super long time, but probably for the past year, following you on Instagram and on YouTube and stuff. And but for those of our listeners who don't have a clue who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So first of all, thank you. But my name is Alex Taylor. I am from Arkansas, 24 years old, and I kind of grew up in the automotive industry. My dad used to build show cars and mainly like fiberglass 41 wheelies, 33 wheelies, came from that side, production stuff, and not a real drag racing background. But when I was 15, I grew up in a shop, like I said, so like it's kind of that whole like in your blood, that deal, it's true. But when I was 14, we decided to build my first car that was supposed to just be a daily driver to high school, which happened to be what was my mom's 68 Camaro. I named it Bad Marrow, and I ended up, we built it to drag race and do Hot Rod Magazine's Drag Week with it when I was 16. And from there, it literally snowballed from that car. It ended up being an 850, 8.5-second car sitting in the high school parking lot. And I went to college for marketing and knew when I went in that I didn't want to go, to work for somebody else, but I wanted to work on building my own brand, which at the time, and it still is Alex Taylor Racing. And so I am full-time racing and traveling and doing things with automotive stuff right now, whether it be on camera work or building in the shop with my dad or racing, different vehicles. Like that's it. And so I'm kind of getting to live my dream right now, and I'm thankful for it.
Seriously. So, okay. Corey and I both work in high schools. So I'm a welding fab teacher and Corey's a wood shop teacher.
Yeah.
And we know that the parking lot, all the nice vehicles in the parking lot do not belong to teachers.
No, it's students.
It's students. So when you rolled up in that Camaro, and there's always a contingent of your peers that are the gearheads. When you rolled up with that thing, how many heads did you turn? Was there pressure to do a big burnout? Like, what was that like?
You'd be so surprised. So when we first built it, it was just a naturally aspirated like LS car, and nothing just super crazy, but it was still a really nice looking car, bright orange. I went to I lived in a small town, and we have less than 4,000 people. It's a sports town, football, that's all they cared about. And so that car to them was like a Toyota Camry sitting in the parking lot. You would everybody always thinks that it would just be like, people would be like, ah, and to them they're like, what is that and why? Like, why, what is the purpose of it, kind of deal. And so it really didn't have the reaction or anything that you would think. Like, I literally used to live a double life of traveling and racing and people liking cars and then coming home and then no one having any idea what was going on or what it was, or so it's kind of weird actually.
What's the score on the football game instead of, hey, look at that car on the road?
Exactly.
Seriously, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So by the sounds of things, like you said, this racing and building was in your blood. But do you have like a distinct like memory or like someone specifically that like inspired you to go this route? Because there are a lot, like, truth be told, there are a lot of kids who have this type of stuff in their blood, whatever it might be, whether it's racing or construction, and they choose to go the complete opposite route. So what made you, or who inspired you to go that route?
So there's a couple, I'm going to give three people because it kind of gives like a couple different series in my life. But to your point, first of all, my sister is 2 years younger than me, and we were both raised in the same shop, same setting. We spent the same amount of time at the shop. And while she likes to be around what we do, she's not involved in it to, the same extent at all. So that's very true. People, even if they are in it, they don't necessarily choose to take that. And, she works with me. Does my photography and graphic design, but that's her thing, and the cars aren't. So it's fine. But you're very right with that said. And I would say like specific people and then maybe a specific point, but it's always been my dad. When I was younger, I didn't realize my dad is a walking genius. And I know everybody says that about their dad, but there's not a question that I can't ask. Like I can ask him and he won't have an answer to. And he might say at first, like, I don't know. And then he'll come back an hour later and he's got an answer. And I've never gone without that knowledge source. Like when I was younger, that's how it always was. Like he's an incredible teacher. And I would be out in the shop and I'd follow him around. I'd follow his employees around. I'd follow whoever around that would like let me follow them basically. And I'd be like, what job can I do? And it made me sticking a washer on a bolt. And that like made me think that I was really just doing something at 4 years old, but I felt like I was helping. And so I just follow around, but I'd always slow my dad down because I'd ask him questions. And it could be about anything, it could be about engines and transmissions. It could be about fiberglass. It could be about how that bandsaw works. I just wanted to know. I was hungry for knowledge, hungry for understanding. And I don't like, I do drive now, but I love the mechanical side as well. And I loved being involved in that. And so like being a teacher, I remember, for example, like I was sitting out in the shop one day and he said something about circumference or pi or something. And so we would just sit down on the floor, he'd take a Sharpie and he'd have a math lesson with me on the floor, how to figure volume, and all this. And so he was my biggest inspiration and he still is. And I would say just because like he taught me so much that it kept me wanting to learn and grow. And it was one of those things like I took it for granted up until, just a couple of years ago, because I thought everybody's dad was like that. Like I thought everybody's dad had this much knowledge, and so people are like, oh, you take it for granted. And it's not because I wasn't appreciative. It's just because I didn't understand. Yeah. Like that was my normal.
That was your worldview. Yeah.
It was. And so that was normal. And so it took me a while to realize that's not normal. And being in the shop and cars 24/7 is not the normal thing, but that's my world. And then when I got older, as we were building my car, well, actually, let me back up just a little bit. Another point that was specific was they traded one of the cars that they had built for the 2007 drag week winning car, which was a very important car in that world at the time, in the drag and drive world. And I fell in love with the car. They sold it. It broke my heart. And so that's when we built my 68 Camaro when I was 15. And it was my copy of it. They were not alike at all, but to me it was. Yeah. And so as we were building that car, we were in nostalgia racing a little bit, like old school drag racing with the old school people that, grew up or they created the sport basically. And there was a lady named Barbara Hamilton, and she was the first female to have her license, her NHRA license. But the cool part about it was she built the car that she raced. And her like girlfriend built this car. And I remember talking to her when I went to one of the races, and she was like, if there's one thing I can tell you, it's to not just like, don't ever just be a driver, be a builder. Like know your stuff, be involved, be hands-on. And I emailed her back and forth for a couple of years. It was super neat. And then I'd say just in the big picture, when anybody ever asked me, they're like, what did you want to do? Because everybody wants to like pinpoint, like you have to pick one thing. I'm like, no, you don't. Like I pick 10 different routes. I'm like, I want to take every opportunity that's there. And that would be Jessie Combs, just because like it was, she did everything. And so I just love that. So those are my three, I would say.
That's awesome. Did you say your dad was a teacher? Did I catch that?
He's not a true like teacher,
but he taught you
just by nature. He just has he's naturally a teacher. So
okay.
That must be really cool to be involved in the building. Like you said, there's building, there's also racing, but to be a builder of your own car, you're going to know your car inside and out. And if something happens, you don't have to go back to the pits or to your crew and say, hey, what's going on? You get to know your car and kind of get that feeling with it. What was that? What was that like with going down that track the first time?
So funny enough, my first time down the track was the car that we built, the 68 Camaro, And I had just turned 16, like a couple weeks before. I turned 16 on July 14th. And the first week of August, I think it was, we had finished the car, rented a little local track that's close to us. And keep in mind, like 3 weeks after this, my dad was about to drop us off in Bowling Green, Kentucky, me and my mom, to go on a week-long race in a brand new car with somebody who had just got her license and knew the car, but also was only 16. So how much experience can you have? So not only was this first track time a lot of pressure for learning the car, but it's a lot of pressure of like learning how to use the car and get the car, you know, manipulate it to run the times that you want it to, basically. And so the first time down the track, you know, I had to learn to do a burnout, and I had to, you know, stage and all that. And so there was all the nerves of that. And then it was a neat moment, just because it's something, you know, that I had waited for and looked forward to. And my license and everything was like, that was the thing that I looked forward to the most, was turning 16, getting my license, and going to the track. So it was really neat.
That's cool. So you didn't dabble in any like junior dragster stuff or anything like that before?
Straight to a door car at 16.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
yeah,
that's cool. So you've like, this is, I feel like I haven't been following you for probably longer than a year, like I said, but even in that time, you talk about your brand and you talk about like the growth of that. Like, I feel like you're blowing up. Like, I see like your YouTube channel is successful. You're in motor, like the Hoopty World Championship. You did that with the Motor Trend guys. And like, what has that been like for you? Like, what has that transition from, well, this, like you said before, like this is just my normal, but now it's to the rest of the world, it's not. And then you have this huge following. What has that transition been like?
So it's one of those things that since I was 16 and I went on my first drag week, I didn't know, like at the time, that was 2013. Social media was there, but it wasn't giant. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't what it is now. And all I wanted to do when I went out was go fast. Like, that was it. I just wanted to make a fast pass, but I was posting on a forum called Bankshift, where everybody that went on this event, they would post and write stories, you know, and whatever. And so I started out posting on there because I wanted to know the people that I was going to be racing with. And that was purely the only reason. I didn't then start it with the intent of having a social media presence. Mm. And I remember the first time when I was 16 and I showed up to an event, and they're like, "You're the girl with the Camaro." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like, how do you know and why do you care?" Kind of deal.
Also, so, that's like, creepy. How the hell do you know that? Yeah.
You know, but like from there, like it grew for you know, years. And about 3 years ago is when I really started to be like, okay, I want to make this like, I have to figure out how I can keep racing. So, and I want to step it up. So like, how do I fund that, you know? And so that's where I really started shifting to a focus of what does it take, you know, the business side to do that from. And so I started my YouTube channel, and it was a slow growth. I've always been a believer of slow growth. Like, I'm not going to go do a stunt that could gain me some really quick followers, just because like that's not me, and that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I love cars, and I love the industry, and I love that side of it. So that's my reasoning. And so I say that to say that's all been slow, but within the last year, stuff did just go haywire, you know, really quick. Stuff snowballed. And it started when we built the 55, and the 55 is like literally the most life-changing thing I think we could have done. And I love that car so much. But we started that car in last January just because I was ready to step up. Like, it was time to do something different. I wanted to go faster. I didn't want to cut up my 68 Camaro. And that's the reason we started it. But I want to back up real quick, because when I graduated college, I gave myself 1 year to take on like car stuff full time, whatever it may look like, whether it be in front of a camera or, you know, whatever that may look like. I gave myself a year, which was 2020. So it's pandemic. So it was weird. I gave myself longer than a year, but I told myself if that didn't work out, I'd go to law school. Skip that. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that.
Spoiler alert.
I took my LSATs, you know, whatever. But anyway, so back to what I was saying, when we built the 55 and we did the YouTube series with it and things like that, it just opened up so many doors. It opened up doors for my driving. It allowed me to progress there. It was the first car that me and my dad built 100% from the ground up. Like, we took, you know, a rotting away 55 Chevy and built it in 4 months. And so that's why that car is so special, not only because it's life-changing in the sense of the opportunities it opened up, but it's life-changing in the sense of like it's the first project that my dad and I like 100%, like we talked every single day about what detail, like how do we want this to look? What do we want that to look like? How do we do this? Like, how do we want the cage laid out, you know? And like, so that it's just it's a monumental car for me, and it's a monumental era this past year has been. And I'm just, you know, I'm thankful to get to have the opportunities I do, but it's changed a lot in a year.
Yeah.
Now you take that thing to the drag and drive events, because I saw some pictures on Instagram with the trailer and the slicks. That seems so cool to be able to drive your car, throw your slicks on, and go racing.
Man, it's so fun, like to do it and like go 200, you know, in it, and then go back out and cruise it on the street at, you know, 30 miles an hour with your friends and pull up and get a burger or something. Like that's cool.
That's awesome. You have to shut it off when you get up to the drive-through. Right? Yeah. So speaking of 200, we just saw on your Instagram you just did 3.8.
Yeah.
That's insane. So, what is that like? Like do you even remember? Like you blink, literally you blink.
It's the most wild, insane feeling I've ever felt. So 5 weeks ago, I guess it was, it was in March, I took my 55 Chevy and I ran 200 in the quarter for the first time. So that's 200 miles an hour in like 7.06 seconds. But then
crazy.
Follow that up with this past week, it was 209 miles an hour in 3.82 seconds or something like that. And I launched, I let go of the button, and time slows down. So like the 3 seconds, it seems like it happened like that, but you have time to like kind of process stuff. But it was wild. Like I was like, it throws you back in your seat, and then you're along for the ride, and your brain is working so fast. And at the end of it, you're just like, oh my gosh, like that was insane. Like that was cool. And it's addicting. That's what it is. It's very addicting.
It's like I could just imagine the like endorphin rush you get from that.
Do you enjoy the
3 point?
Do you enjoy the build? Like the building process up to getting in there? Like do you enjoy the whole process, or is there kind of a favorite part of build to getting it on the track and racing, or do you just like the whole process?
Man, that's a difficult question. Like it depends. So when we were building the car, the 55 originally, because the Bumblebee, the yellow car, we didn't build. I just drove that. That's the first car I've ever just driven. But when we were building the 55, I learned so much skill-wise during the process of that car, and learned what I liked and what I didn't like and things like that. And it was interesting because like every day was different. And so stuff that I really enjoy is like, I like fabrication. I'm not by any means like the best at it because I don't have those years of experience under me, but like I loved building the chassis on the car. I love the design of it. I love, you know, reading through the rules and the books and like where bars need to go. Like I love that. And that's a lot of fun to me, and welding and things like that. Anything to do with metal, I like. Something I ended up doing a lot of that I don't necessarily care for is wiring. Like I wired a car for like, I feel like 3 weeks straight. Like it was 3 weeks straight. It was just every day. You know, there's so many things in those cars that are just, it's so many electronics and everything has to be right. And I don't know, I like being able to touch areas of all of it. So it's not like we have to send the car out for this at this shop and send it there for that shop. We do everything in our shop. And so I think I'm still learning to answer that question. I'm still learning what my favorite part is, but I enjoy the learning. And so that's probably the part of the build that I like most is the learning.
Working on your skill sets and build. It sounds like creating those memories with your dad too, and all those builds, right? Like that's pretty cool to be able to build a vehicle from start to finish with your father.
For sure.
Build those memories.
Oh yeah. And you'll never get rid of those cars either. Like those are,
no,
I'm sure that those are going to be passed down and passed down and passed down.
Oh, absolutely. And like one of the coolest things is like when we built my 68 Camaro, I don't remember that so much just because I was 16 and, you know, that's 9 years ago now. And it's like, oh, at the time you think you'll never forget the stuff, you know, but you do. And so with the 55 is exactly the same. It's like, how could I forget this? And at this point, there's so much I don't remember. But it's so neat because that entire build, start to finish, is vlogged and recorded on the YouTube channel. And so I think that is just, I am so thankful I did that. Like, that is so cool, because now I can go back and I can look at it and one day I can be like, oh my gosh, like that's how that happened. And I have that visual reference. So it's pretty neat.
So speaking of these builds and different things, and working on these cars, advice for someone who wants to get started in this area. What advice do you have?
I would say something I always say is like, one, first of all, just get started, because I am a perfectionist and that holds me back a lot, just because I want stuff to be done right. But the main thing is just getting started and getting in there. But then two, something else that people pick is that they want stuff to happen really fast, because like now you don't see people's background and like what led them there. And for example, like you look in the past year, it looks like everything I've done has just happened overnight, basically. But you don't realize that there's, a lot of people don't see that there was years and years and years of progression. And so I always try to tell people, like, don't let that discourage you, because it's, and also don't go in thinking that you're owed something by anybody. Like you have to prove yourself. I had somebody tell me once, one of my close friends actually, he said, I just want to be respected, Alex. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, I want to be respected. And I'm like, well, what do you want to be respected for? And he's like, I don't know. I just want to be respected. I'm like, until you can answer what you want to be respected for, no one else can respect you for that. Like, you have to find that out and find your passion, and then you can be respected, but you have to figure that out. And so that sounds so simple, like you should just know that, but it's not. And I think you have to understand that. You got to build your way into it, and never be afraid to take different opportunities. Because like something that I've always focused on is, if the opportunity is there, I'm going to take it. It may not look like it lines directly in the path that I eventually want to be at, but to be honest, I don't know where I want to be at. And if the opportunity is there, I want to take it. So I encourage people not to be too like laser focused on, if it's not this, then it's not right, because that step may take you over here, it may take you over there, which may end up taking you to that step eventually.
Yeah. No, I respect that so much, because I think even teaching high school, like you have kids, and I think social media is a little bit to blame for this. I don't want to sound old and crotchety, but you know what I mean? Like it's all instant, right? They see if someone logs in and goes like on Instagram or something and sees, all they see is your follower count and how many likes you're getting, and then, oh, this person must have made it. And I'm sure you're probably getting a lot of people coming up to you and be like, how do I do what you do? But you have been doing this for so long, and that's the side of things that people don't like, the work side of things. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, in regards to all that, putting in the work, but also in a predominantly like male dominated sport, being a pioneer for females in this sport, essentially, right? And there's more people coming up, but like, how has that experience been for you? And now that there's more, right? But like, what was that like?
It's interesting, because that's a common question, and it's something that up until like probably the last year, I had no answer for it, because to me, I was always like, well, nobody sees it different, because I didn't see it different. My dad, I never looked at it like, oh, I'm a girl kind of deal, because my dad treats me like I'm a son, and it's just, if I can do it, if they can do it, I can do it kind of deal.
Of course.
And so what used to hinder me more was my age, like just getting a little bit older. But as I've gotten older and like dug deeper into it, I see that there are still some areas where, being more so for me is like being a female role model, in the sense of like, and I hate to say this, but like, you'll never see me like, there's a lot of quick ways to the top. I could post stuff a lot differently than I do, but like, I have a lot of respect for myself, and I won't do stuff like that. And so it's just like showing girls, and young boys, just mainly the youth, that like, if you're passionate about something, like passion is what drives everything. And so girl or boy, like, if you have a true love for what you're doing, and you do it the right way, not that there is just a right way, but like, if you do it where you're letting your passion show through, I think then, that's where it'll carry you. And it's been really neat to see girls and boys alike, and young and old, come up to me and tell me that I got my first project car because I watched what you do, and that's just that inspired me. And when somebody tells you that you're an inspiration and you realize you've had some impact to some extent on their life, like that's the coolest thing. Or dads come up and say that I want my daughter to be like you. Like that's where you realize, like, oh man, like I owe a lot of people a lot of things, and I owe it to them to do good, to continue doing good. And so like it's one of the neatest things.
Well, as a father of a daughter, I want to say that I do respect and appreciate that about you, and not only the part that you mentioned, but also like the hard work and the authenticity, because all that other stuff falls away, and you're gonna and you can be consistent with that authenticity, and people see through that stuff too. Right. And they see that you're genuine. They see that you're authentic. That's what connects with people. Right.
Right.
It's really cool.
Are you still there? There you are. Okay.
Yep.
Gave me a message. I thought I lost you.
So last couple questions here, and then we'll let you go. What skill sets do you think are the most important to develop when someone wants to get into this area?
Just in general, as far as building.
Yeah, as far as building, fabricating, everything you're involved with, really. If someone wanted to do what you do, what do you think the skill sets they should have?
I'm going to keep it broad, because I think that changes based on, it's very specific, like depending on what trade you go in or how you approach driving, like that's also different. But I would say one thing to remember, and this sounds so dumb, but it's what comes to my head at the very first thing is, learning your basics. Like some people run before they can walk, and don't look past, like something my dad always tells me is like he could do anything with like a bandsaw and a grinder, like basic tools, where everybody else has, you get in the mindset of, I don't have a CNC, so I can't build that.
Yeah.
But you have know your tools and know the stuff that you're working with, and know that there are tools out there. So I would say one of your best skills you could do is be knowledge hungry, because then you can carry that over to anything. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, like you could say, oh yeah, welding for the purpose of this, or this for that. But I would say knowing your basics, know how to use your basic tools, and then how to find the information to go from there. Which sounds very broad, but that's just, people forget that.
Well, this is a common theme. We did one more interview earlier today, and that was a common theme too. So even learning how to read a tape measure properly, right? Some things we take for granted sometimes.
You do, yeah. People don't know that kind of stuff. It's surprising, it gets passed by, and it's like, no, that stuff is, you can't build until you know your basics. And I every day, so frustrating, because I compare myself to my dad a lot, but I'm like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing, because the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, and it's just this perpetual cycle of oh my gosh, I've got a to-do list of learning here, and so it's cool, but yeah.
So speaking of tools, top 3 tools for starting out in building or metal fab or vehicle building.
Okay. So top 3, I'm going to copy what my dad said. I love a good bandsaw. I've used that since I was young. Just when I was 8 or 9, I had a little mini bandsaw, because I wanted to build different wood pieces and stuff like that. So I like that. Sander, I love a belt sander, just because you can refine so much there. And then let's see. I love one of my favorite basic hand tools is a good ratchet. I know that's weird, but I just love, there's differences, and I love a set of ratchets. And so I'd say that's my favorite hand tool. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Alex, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule today to come talk to us on the Builder Sessions. And before you go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you online and what you have going on to promote to them?
Yeah, so on Instagram and Facebook, you can find me at Alex Taylor Racing. And then on YouTube, you can find me at Riding with Alex Taylor. So on YouTube, which I'm a little bit delayed in getting some stuff out right now, but there's a lot more long form content, a lot more in-depth details. Me and my dad talk back and forth a lot about the learning and the actual building side, the process.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the other stuff, it's a lot more short form update stuff. So you definitely check it out over there. And we got a full season of racing and lots of projects planned and some cool stuff coming up.
Awesome.
Sounds exciting.
So big thanks to Alex Taylor for coming on the show. Big thanks to you for listening. And for all episodes, show notes, and social media links for Alex and for the Builder Sessions podcast, look down there in the show notes. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, guys.